That's me striving. Always striving. Have a curious mind, baby. Number one, have a curious mind. And some of you were curious about beef Wellingtons, and you made them, and look what happened. Nothing. They were perfect. But here's the news flash. You can Wellington other things, and they're just as fancy and pretty and seemingly difficult, okay? They're very easy, as you now know, because you're a dinner partier. Today, I'm going to show you how to make a perfect Christmas dinner called salmon en croûte, which means salmon in crust, essentially. Croûte, if you want to be super affected. We're going to use Gordon's recipe. Those are always a good place to start. Honestly, even though Gordon would hate this, Gordon and Jamie, their recipes are pretty gold standard. Then you can experiment and explore. Anyways, salmon en croûte. What the hell is salmon en croûte? Well, guess what? It's salmon wrapped in a pastry crust. Now, we're going to use 2 pieces of a beautiful filet, which I'll show you in a minute. We're going to sandwich it with a little compound butter. We're going to wrap it in puff pastry, which you bought at a store, which we say again for the 300th time. There's no shame in that. Professional chefs buy pastry pre-made, a puff pastry pre-made. There's no real skill in it. It's time consuming and it makes a huge mess. So buy your puff pastry and buy Dufour. So I went to Citarella, which in New York we've discussed is the best, pretty much the best fishmonger. The man himself was a fishmonger and the store was originally a fishmonger. That's it. Then they became a specialty grocery store. But if you go to your fishmonger, of course you will remember to
tip your fishmonger.
No, Hightower, he's doing something else. Why do we buy salmon? Salmon is firm. It'll hold up in the croûte. You don't want something like John Dory or flounder or something that's very thin and delicate. You want something with a little robustness. But I would do salmon. It's quite beautiful. It's pink. It's festive. It's lovely. So I bought a side and I trimmed it into 2 similar sized fillets. Here they are. Make sure it's skinned or you'll be skinning it yourself. And that's what we're looking for, is 2 pieces that basically are the same size. And we have a little extra piece from the tail also that I'm going to use for a little salmon salad. So there we have the pieces that we're using for the croûte. Skin side up, but then we're gonna put skin side to skin side, okay? But let's just salt and pepper these quickly. Lightly, you know, no big schmoo. This should be essentially room temperature. Remember, if something is cold, what happens is the outside cooks, but the inside doesn't. That's how you get burned steaks that are raw on the inside, because the person didn't let it come to room temperature. And it has a name in French that I can't remember. It's like... Now I'm gonna make a compound butter to sandwich in between the 2 pieces. What I'm gonna use is, strangely, butter for the compound butter. And then I'm just gonna chop up some herbs. Now I'm using tarragon, notoriously great with fish, a little flat leaf parsley, and a little basil. I'm gonna pull off the tough stems, just the herb. And it's pretty dry, but I'm gonna dry it again. I'm gonna take a cloth, roll this up into a cigar, all these herbs, like this. When you chop herbs, they shouldn't leave a green mark. That means you're losing the flavor of the herbs on your cutting board. Watch it make a huge green mark. Then I'm taking the cigar and folding it towards me and holding it. So that is a large chiffonade. Turn it and do the cutting again. No green. And I'm gonna just put this into some room temperature butter. And I'm just gonna mush it together. Now in the summer, for corn and stuff, it just takes an extra 3 seconds. Take the butter out of the fridge before your guests come, let it come to room temperature, and add a little herb, salt and pepper thing for people's corn. It's so good. I'm going to put a tiny amount of cumin in mine. I'm just gonna put a little teeny bit. I'm just gonna put a little salt and pepper in here too, so it's divine. So we're gonna zest a little bit into the butter, so the butter is yummy. And we're gonna flip this way. So I'm gonna put a little zest on both sides of this also. It's beautiful. I guess I'm now going to put this in between. There we go. So this will keep it very moist and luxurious. Okay, I'm flipping this over. There's our package. I'm gonna put this on a paper towel so it stays nice and dry while we prepare our pastry. I'm just gonna lightly oil this so we can get the fish off of it when we're done. Puff pastry. Ah, very nice piece. Little tiny bit of flour. You want to roll this out so it's about, I don't know, so it's thinner than this. This is too thick. And if you get little splits, you can use a tiny drop of water and stick them back together again. Now this you can take all the way to the wrapped stage and put it in the refrigerator overnight. Remember, keep your pastry moving so you know it can move, right? If you keep rolling it out and you never move it, when you go to move it, it's just gonna be stuck to the table. Okay, here we go. I'm setting it in the middle, and then I'm gonna egg wash the hell out of this, okay? This is just a beaten egg. This will make the pastry stick together. I would just egg wash the whole thing. Now you gotta move a little bit fast because the pastry is getting warm now. Okay, I'm pressing it together. I'm gonna egg wash this just for good luck. I'm gonna trim this just a little bit. And I'm gonna do this. Sort of fold it up onto itself like that. Same thing on the other side. Fold up. And you're gonna do this. Okay, I'm gonna egg wash this. Actually, I'm gonna make a little design and then I'm gonna egg wash it. Now, you can design it with little fish scales. You can put it in the shape of a fish. All right, you can do whatever you want. I'm just gonna do little cross hatching like this. I'm not cutting all the way through. I'm gently scoring it. Just a little cross hatch, just to be very Christmassy. Now I'm gonna egg wash it, the whole thing. I would not egg wash it if you're leaving it overnight. I would do this last. And this gives you that lovely, shiny, golden crust, you know? I spilled a little egg wash right at the bottom, which I am gonna wipe with a cloth because the pooling egg wash can make it difficult to get your dish off the thing. Just like that. I put a little rock salt on top, in other words, Malden salt. Ooh, look at that. I'm gonna put this in the fridge. Hilarious. 3 minutes, just so the pastry gets cold again. It's one of the few things that you want to cook cold. So this has been in the fridge long enough for it to get sort of cold again. I scored it too deeply. It's probably gonna open like a flower, but it doesn't really matter. Don't score it as deeply as I did. I'm putting this in a 400 oven for about 20, 25 minutes. You want the pastry to be completely puffed and brown, and then your salmon is probably done. You could stick a toothpick in and feel the toothpick, and if it's hot, the salmon is definitely done. If it's warm, the salmon is done. If it's cold, your pastry wouldn't be cooked. So basically just go off the pastry. It's been about 30 minutes for me to like the look of the pastry, which I do now. I'm gonna take this out, and it made a lot of loose butter, which I'm gonna try to dump in the sink. And then I'm gonna take this and put it here. And that's got to rest for at least 15 minutes before you slice it. If you slice it now, it will disintegrate in a buttery disaster. This looks divine. So here's our salmon en croûte, carefully positioned by myself in Hightow. Now that it's on the plate, it looks so beautiful. It's obviously a Christmas dinner. And you would cut this similar to how you would cut a Wellington. The end piece is going to have more pastry. It's kind of a throwaway piece. And then you cut sort of nice, thick slices of it. Salmon en croûte. What a hoot. Have a curious mind, baby. Number one, have a curious mind.